You want it? We have it. The hottest mortgage and real estate strategy broadcast in the nation. A Smarter Way Home with your host, Danielle Boote and Victor Bals. 50 years combined experience, ranked in the top 1% in the nation for home loan originations 2020. Promise to expand your knowledge, utilizing creative mortgage financing and home buying strategies. Build a bridge for a better quality of life. Get your brain cells firing for a smarter way home. And welcome to another episode of A Smarter Way Home. We have home buying and mortgage strategies for consumers and real estate professionals alike. And today we're going to have a good show, but first I would like to introduce my co-host, my friend, the loan officer extraordinaire, coming in, zooming in from Cape Coral, Florida, from her decompression chamber, the wonderful Mrs. Danielle Boote. How are you?
Good morning, Victor. I am great.
Good. How's the weather down there in Florida?
It is fabulous. It was a little chilly when we first got here, and it is warming up. And of course, today will probably be perfect in about 78, but we're coming home later.
Up here in Michigan, we got about 10 degrees out there and a 30-mile-an-hour wind. It's pretty bad. But anyway, Danielle, we got a pretty exciting show today, and I'd like you to introduce our guest. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So it is my pleasure to introduce Michelle Vedder from Real Estate One. She has been a realtor in the Livingston County area for over 20 years and is a good friend of ours. So we're excited to have her on the show today, and we are going to talk about prepping your home for sale.
Welcome.
And some of the things that Michelle recommends her list sellers do to get the best equity position out of their home.
So Michelle, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Okay. Well, and I've known Michelle for 20 years now?
Just about,
You know, we've become great friends. You're a mentor. You're a life coach to me and all the stuff that I've got
You need
going.
one.
Yes, I do. But it was funny, Danielle, because Michelle and I were just talking about last week, and we'd like to have Michelle on the show. And Michelle brought up a very cool saying. She says, clutter eats equity. I want you to explain to our audience, what does that mean?
Well, when you go into a home for a CMA, sometimes you know the seller, sometimes you do not. And sometimes sellers don't even understand how much clutter they have in their home.
Okay.
They're super busy, they're homeschooling, they're working from home, and I try to explain to them that let's take things off the counter. So let's put some toys away. Let's do these things. And when I tell them clutter eats equity, they're like, wow, that makes so much sense.
Okay, so I'm a home seller. So you come to my house to do a CMA, a current market analysis, to see what it's worth for sale.
Correct.
But you see these obstacles that are taking my equity away?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the seller has to want to do a change. Some people are like, I'm moving out of state. I don't care. Just get the house sold. The market's great. Just let's get it done. So, but if they do, I always offer. And if they say, let's go room by room, I will go room by room with them.
Okay. Do people get overwhelmed? Because
Very
we've
much
lived in our
overwhelmed.
house 20 years and I see clutter around there.
Well, not with your wife.
Well, to me, it's whatever. But, I would get overwhelmed because there's, you have stuff. You gather stuff.
What I usually tell them, start with something small. Start with a linen closet.
Okay.
Complete that task. Take everything out. We don't need 12 towels. We need maybe 6 because you do laundry or stuff like that. But whatever it is, take everything out and start fresh. Get the little baskets from Home Goods, the dollar store, whatever it is, and start fresh. Maybe paint it. Put new towels, new toothpaste, whatever it takes. Complete that task, then move on to something else.
Okay, so don't look at it as a whole.
Nope.
Start taking it as projects.
A little project at a time, complete it, then you have satisfaction, then that will give you the drive to go do a bigger closet, a child's closet, a pantry. Then start with the kitchen cabinets.
How much equity how much of a difference can this make by decluttering a home on the saleability?
Well, it can make a big difference. I mean, sometimes it's paint a room. And once they move things out and they don't have to have 3 chairs in a room or a living room or, stuff around the fireplace. And we do professional photos. So, photos on the MLS is what drives people there. Now, we do have a crazy market, as we know, and sellers do very well right now. But clutter eats equity.
Really? Okay.
Well, I think particularly from a closet perspective, you don't want to give a buyer the idea that you've outgrown the house and the closets are too small, right? I mean,
Yep.
everybody that's moving is probably moving because in many cases because they've outgrown a house unless they're downsizing. And you want to give that buyer the fact check, so to speak, that hey, look at these spacious closets, look at these good room sizes. And it's definitely hard. I mean, we moved a couple years ago. We were in our house for 25 years. It was unbelievable. I mean, we gutted a kitchen. We had 2 dumpsters of
Yes.
between work material and then stuff. And, it was crazy. And we weren't messy people. It was just
Sometimes,
a
I
lot
mean,
more than we entertained.
right, when you think about Tupperware, you've had Tupperware that's been passed down, down, and it's like, if you take it all out, probably half of it doesn't even have lids that match.
Right.
Start
Yes.
fresh.
Yeah, we got that.
And dish towels and stuff like that. Do we really need 12 spatulas? Maybe you can get by with 3. Just the little things that our parents have passed down to us. And you just clean things out. You got to start small and it works up to a bigger room.
Now, what's your take, Michelle, on like personal photos? That's something that I've heard.
Yeah,
realtors
we've
talk
had
about
well-
this
before.
discussion.
I love photos. I have photos all over. I tell people photos make a home feel loved. So I never tell people to take photos down. Never.
But personal family photos,
Never.
I was always
never.
under the impression, you want to make it neutral. You don't want you want them to, I guess, imagine their photos on the walls.
No. 22 years, I've never told a seller to take photos down. That's a HG California type of thing that started many, many moons ago. Photos in a home makes it feel loved.
Okay. What about pets? I hear a lot of, it smelled like cats. It smelled like
Yep.
dog. What's up with pets? Does that really hurt the value of a home?
Yes, for sure.
Really?
It can, yes.
Okay.
If you're not on top of the litter box or the dog's beds that make it smell like a wet dog or something like that, then yes, it can affect the home. Smoking. I mean, smoking's another thing.
I mean, and what is that like? Could that affect it like 3% of value, 5% of value? I mean, what?
Depends on the home. Sometimes even if people are smoking in the garage, it still comes in the house with you.
Right.
So some people think, I'm just smoking outside or I'm smoking in the garage, but it still comes in the house with you. And there are people who have a lot of allergies. I get calls that they're like, first, before an agent even goes sees the home, they're like, has there been any animals in the house? Because we have a child that has severe allergies and allergic to cats or allergic to dogs. And they ask those questions right up front before they even schedule an appointment.
Wow. What about the outside? I always hear curb appeal.
Yep.
Are you telling them to declutter their yard and groom it up? Does that really help on
Absolutely.
value?
Yep, absolutely. Now in Michigan, it's hard because we have winter. But if I know they're going to be listing their home in the spring, or we're, depending on the timing of the year, I always say, where are your summer photos? Where are your fall photos? We can add those. I just sold a house that we listed it and we knew we were listing it in the winter. So I had my photographer out there late fall to take photos and do drones because of that reason. I said, let's see the foliage, let's see the green grass.
Oh, so people can imagine
Yep.
them living there in the
Exactly.
fall. Okay. Well, that makes
Instead of snow. They can't see, the property. This one had acreage, but they can't see everything if it's covered in snow.
What about toys? People, I always talk to customers. They say, "Oh my God, I don't know if I want to sell my house, but I got so many toys with the kids." Well, how does that affect it?
Well, you got to realize most people understand that there's a family that lives in a house. You got toys, everyone's got toys. You just pick them up. You pick them up for the photos. You make sure that they're put away as best as you can. We can't ask the kids not to play with toys.
Right.
You just pack some of them away. Put them in a garage. I know a lot of people that get pods.
Pods. And explain what a pod is. Some of our consumers may not understand that.
Okay, a pod is a container that will come to your home and you can load things in. There is a monthly fee, and I think it depends on, there's a couple different companies you can use. You can load boxes in and they will take it out. They can deliver it to the next home. They can, it's storage. Basically, it's storage or a storage unit.
Okay. So you're talking that clutter eats equity. Would that not also be true for maybe when you're taking buyers out, you want to look for homes that actually have clutter because it's actually depreciated a little bit and you may get a better deal? What would your take on that be?
Well, I can walk into a home usually with a buyer, and if they're like, oh my gosh, I hate red paint. And I'm like, paint is cheap. Mm-hmm. You got to look past the paint. You got to look past the light fixtures. The doors can be changed. Everything is very easy to be changed. Let's look at the floor plan. Let's look at the structure as a whole. Mm-hmm. Everything can be updated.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What about appliances and that? And, if they're older, do you recommend, hey, put a new fridge or stove in? Or do you just say, keep it the way it is and use that as a negotiating tool? How would you approach something like that on a home that's maybe 20 years old that really hasn't had a lot of updates?
Well, it depends. Every home is different. Our market will change. And so you look at every house as an individual case. Location. I mean, it could be in a great location and have 20-year-old appliances that still work. So a lot of sellers are like, I don't want to go spend $10,000 on new appliances. Everything works. So maybe we do a home warranty. For a buyer's perspective, our job as a realtor is not to go in and during an inspection and say, okay, the appliances are 20 years old. Our inspection is health and safety concerns when we do an inspection on a home. If they come back and say, well, the appliances are 20 years old, let's ask for a credit for them. But they work. Uh-huh. So, we have to be careful that we realize that even though they're 20 years old, sometimes they're made better than what they are right now.
Okay. And now I have a question, because here in Livingston County, we have it's a little bit more spread out, and we have homes that have outbuildings and pole barns, and they're just, if they're like me, they're just packed with stuff, like my parents were packed with stuff. And when you say declutter, I mean, these pole barns, this multiple pole barns are just packed with stuff.
That's okay. I'm talking declutter the home.
Okay.
I mean, everyone, you got a pole barn because you got stuff. You got lawnmowers, you got extra cars, you got bikes, you got motorcycles. That's part of it.
Because you've seen my parents' house in their basement before. And it's like, oh, you actually get lost in the basement. There was so much stuff. It was a Costco downstairs.
It was.
And does that hurt a packed basement?
No, it can. I mean, but it's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
It's every situation is different.
Okay. So what would you advise home sellers thinking about selling? What's the first step they do? I want to sell my house. Do they call a real estate agent, or do they call an expert in not only real estate, but I guess this is somewhat staging. And let's segue into staging, because this decluttering almost is something to stage. And talk about staging and the importance of that. What your opinion is of staging?
Well, I believe in staging.
Okay.
I have been doing it for a long time. I do it on my own homes that I buy and fix up. It is very important. So I'm very fortunate that most of my business is all referrals. And I go in, and if they want my opinion, I will give it. Usually they do. I also offer to help. I can come in, I'll help you pack, I'll help you. I got time. I love to do stuff like this. I really ultimately love to help people. And if they're struggling, they have kids, they're working, they're doing all this, I offer to come in, let me help you. Let's pick a day, let's go a couple hours, let's start with a closet. Let's declutter stuff, let's organize it, let's get rid of stuff. It's the saying of, you have a throwaway pile, you have a donate pile, and you have a keep pile. And we really have to focus on that. If you're not going to use these clothes, your different sizes, or you haven't used them in 6 months,
The
get
fat
rid of
clothes,
them.
right?
Well,
we can finally
we all
throw
have
away
them.
the fat clothes.
No. But so staging is very important. Sometimes, I'm a huge home goods shopper. I love home goods. And you could redo a bathroom for less than $100.
On decorating.
And decorating stuff. I'm not talking counters. Sometimes painting a cabinet will make a huge deal. Wow. And then the countertops are good. You just throw on some new rugs, towels, toothbrush holder, cups, whatever, little artwork. And Facebook Marketplace is a great place to buy things.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And sell things.
Yeah. Well,
People have so much money in their home that they can get rid of with chairs, couches, rugs, that Facebook Marketplace, $10, $20, $30, it's gone.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. Let me ask you this here, because in this market, we're in a very hot seller's market, and so a lot of times we're trying to buy a home, non-contingent of selling our home, because my strategy is usually, okay, let's buy the home without selling your home, and then declutter.
Yes.
The current home.
Yes.
And that's a time to clean everything out. And because now, what if we buy a home and we move everything out of the house? Now it's a vacant home. What sells better, a vacant home or something with furniture in it?
Again, depends on the time of year, depends on the location, depends on the market. Sometimes it is, if you move everything out, you're like, oh gosh, look at the floor now. Look at the walls. Now I got to paint the walls. Now I got to change the carpeting. So sometimes it is better to leave some furniture in there, leave a few dishes, things like that, so it looks like it is lived in.
Okay.
It just, every situation's different. You got to look at case by case. Yeah, now we got to paint the wall because our table or our couch was up against the wall. Now we're moving it. And
Yeah, because I see sometimes I imagine going into a home, and if it's vacant, it's a little bit colder feel, but the engineer in me says, now I can see what I'm getting too.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Any comments on that, Danielle, at all?
Yeah, we've sold a couple houses. In fact, Michelle sold my daughter's house, and actually they just closed this week. And it was amazing to see how important this staging was. So my daughter has 2 young kids. They both work full time. And I told Michelle, I'm like, you're going to have to help the kids, and I'll help on the back end. But, for instance, we brought a kitchen table over from our cottage to our daughter's house
To
for when
stage
she put it on the market to help stage, because
Yep.
her normal kitchen table was just real kind of tiny and it didn't work. So we it was amazing to see what moving furniture around a little bit did for the house and helped it sell very, very quickly. And when we sold our house in Pinckney a few years ago, we did leave it partially staged. So what we did then was we left furniture on the first floor, and the bedrooms were empty, but the first floor was still staged. So you can kind of do a combination
Yep.
of things that, again, make it feel warm and inviting, and, leaving the vase on the counter or something on the kitchen table, or setting the kitchen table and having it look pretty. It gives buyers a great feeling when they walk in, and they can start to imagine what it's going to look like when they live there.
Right.
Hey, what about, it's the middle of winter. Would you recommend getting the windows cleaned, even at this time of year
Yes. And we just had that with Danielle's daughter's house.
Oh, really?
She got the windows cleaned, and that was in December.
Wow.
And it worked. It
helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're trying to declutter and just take any potential negative a potential buyer could see out of there.
Well, you don't realize how dirty your windows are until you have someone professionally clean them. Because even if you think you're doing your windows, you're not really doing them inside, outside, the tracks and everything. And that lets the light come in.
And I tell people, remove the screens for the winter.
Why remove the screens in the winter?
Because your windows look brighter after you have them cleaned. Take the screens out. You don't need your screens in.
Okay, so a part of staging then, would you, when you set it up, are you going to keep the blinds open, let as much light in as possible? What's your angle on that?
Yes, that would be the first, especially for photos and showings. Have the blinds open, as much as you can for natural light. We don't have a lot of natural light in Michigan in the winter.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we got about 3 hours of it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So, what about doing improvements? Yeah, I want to sell my house, but I think I need to put that roof on and gutters, and it needs this, and I'm going to paint it this color because that's what I think will sell. How do you handle those objections there? Should we do repairs on houses or wait for a realtor to tell us this?
Well, you should, I mean, if you have a roof issue, if it's, depending on the roof, 15, 20 years old, definitely, look into see what a roof is going to cost. Those things are all pluses when you go to sell. A lot of buyers will go in and they don't want to do anything. They want to make sure the house is freshly painted, it's clean, the roof is done, all the big mechanicals are done.
Okay. Well, because my house is 21 years old and I'm looking at changing the roof because it's just tired.
Right.
And I know there's going to be some issues soon. But should I put the roof on or should I use that as a negotiating tool?
Put the roof on.
Really? Just
Yes,
put
put the roof on.
But I got a quote. It's going to be $25,000 to put the roof on. Will I get dollar for dollar or part of it? How would that work out? Me as a seller, I'm thinking the bottom line.
Well, you might not get dollar to dollar, but it's going to help sell the house.
Okay.
If you're competing with your neighbor that just did a new roof, has a new furnace, new appliances, or whatever the case is, they're going to be like, well, let's take this house. It has a new roof
Okay.
over your neighbor or another house they're looking at.
Danielle, what's your take on that?
Well, I think buyers look at those big ticket items because they know that they're expensive and they know that they have a life expectancy. So, I agree. I think buyers are going to look at that and say, I'd rather buy the house with the newer roof.
And buyers do look into, okay, if I buy this house, what do I have to do in 3 years? What am I going to have to do in 5 years? Okay, so we now have to budget a new roof. The inspector said we have roughly 5 years left. Now I have 2, 3 little kids, and now we got a budget for a roof in 5 years. So those are the things that are very
Would they
important.
rather spend 10,000 or 15,000 more for a
Yes.
house now and get one that has all the bigger updates done?
Exactly.
I mean, if the property will appraise,
Yeah.
that's the other big thing is you have to look at market conditions. What
Yep.
is the house? What is that neighborhood selling for? And, what do you think you could get on the high end versus the low end of the average?
Right. So when I have a seller that's done a lot of the upgrades, roof, water heater, furnace, AC appliances, I always meet with my appraisers for my houses.
Okay.
Always.
Does that help?
Yes, it
Okay.
does.
And take me through that. Take me through that conversation.
So what I do, I meet the appraisers. I say, okay, these are the upgrades in the last 2 years. These are the upgrades in the last 4 years. I list them all out. I'm like, okay, they just put a roof on last year. It was $20,000.
Do you actually ask for like receipts too to prove it? Because that could be hearsay.
Well,
If I'm a seller and I have them, is it any information I can give you?
oh, absolutely. From a seller's perspective, I mean, you can't lie on a disclosure.
Right.
So if you're telling me the roof is 2020, 2021, put it on the disclosure.
Right.
We usually have warranties for stuff like that. But back to the appraisal, if they're all new appliances, here's all brand new appliances. You're not going to get dollar to dollar, but it can come into effect for a comp reason. It might bump the appraisal up because, by $5,000, $10,000, $20,000.
Okay, wow, that's significant too.
Absolutely. As a seller's agent, you got to do your job.
Right.
You gotta sit with the seller, say, what have we done in the last 5 years? You make notes, and if somebody requests a receipt for the roof or the appliances, you provide that, and you meet with the appraisers, and you make sure they have all the proper information.
You brought up something during that last statement about home warranty.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go there. Is it wise for a buyer to buy a home warranty, or is it wise for a seller to provide a home warranty? What's your take on that?
Well, right now with supply and demand, parts are hard to get parts for things that are a refrigerator, a stove, or whatever, a furnace. I have done a lot of those, but I'm not 100% to tell you they're worth every penny of it.
Well, they are?
They are or not. It
Okay.
depends. It really depends. Right now, the supply and demand is really hard right now for home warranties.
Okay, so buyers aren't getting them on demand, like, hey, I want a home warranty with
Right.
this. They have to go out and buy it on their own
They
if they
could
choose
buy it
to.
on their own, or agents sometimes buy them for people. Sellers offer them. Sometimes sellers will do, when they get ready to list the house, they will buy their own home warranty. So if something comes up during an inspection, let's say the furnace is broken, they can call the home warranty company and try to get that covered under the home warranty.
Oh, so I think I'm going to sell my house in a couple months. I'm going to go buy me a home warranty just in case the buyer's home inspection comes out and says the furnace is bad. Cover?
Yeah.
Wow, I never even thought of that angle.
Yep. $500 depending.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize that the standard home warranty does not cover hot water heaters.
Okay.
So, and those are roughly $2,000.
Yeah, installed. Yeah. I remember back in the day, it was $500. I'll install it myself. Well, that
Doesn't work.
Yeah, those days are over. Okay, as we talked about home inspection. Actually, last week Danielle and I had Todd Arnold on.
I seen that.
On the show here, and it really enlightened me about home inspections. What's your take on a home inspection when your buyers are, sometimes we're seeing they're waiving home inspection when they're buying a home? What is your thought on that?
Well,
Go ahead, spill your guts, man. Tell us what you really think.
if a buyer, again, you work for the buyer, you work for your seller, you work for your buyers, whatever. And if they say, I do not want to do a home inspection, I'm competing, I want this house, I don't want to do a home inspection, I make them sign a waiver that says you legally have waived your inspection. So they cannot come back on myself or Real Estate One. I always tell them it's very, very important to have one. But again, it's not up to me. It's up to them what they choose to do.
Okay. In that situation, let's say I was buying a home. I'm competing. I'm going to waive home inspection per the contract, but I'm still going to get a home inspection for my own warm and fuzzies.
Informational purposes only.
So what would happen if it did discover something and I said, I want out. I don't like it because the inspector found something wrong with, I don't know, the foundation. Can I get out of that contract?
Contact an attorney.
Yeah.
I'm not going to comment on that. Contact an attorney because it depends on how the contract is written, the language that was used, and if you said informational purposes only, or you waived the inspection, I'm not going to comment on. You might want to contact an attorney.
Okay, because, and with Todd here last week, it almost scared me.
Oh, yeah.
To not have an inspection with all the dynamics and the things that they do, and they look behind walls with this infrared.
Absolutely.
My God, and I tell clients, a home inspection is not required, but it's highly recommended. And if you back out because of home inspection, it's the best $500 you ever spent.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, when it comes to the home inspection and whether, do it or not do it, I think that it's important for buyers to realize that not to nitpick the house. Like
Yes,
just because the house has an 18-year-old water heater doesn't mean the seller should put in a new water heater, right? It's working, it's fine, and it's not having any issues.
Correct.
And again, it's a similar thing with the furnace. Sometimes the older furnaces, frankly, will last longer than the newer ones, but wouldn't it be a smart idea for a seller to maybe have the heating and cooling company come out and do a safety check, clean and check the furnace so that you've got a nice receipt that says, hey, XYZ Heating and Cooling, in Livingston County came out and pre-inspected the major mechanicals to make sure that they're working fine.
I've also had sellers that are in question about their own home do a pre-inspection.
Well, and explain what that is. What's a pre-inspection?
Well, a seller still owns the home. We're not on the market. They contact an inspector, Todd or whoever, and they say, come and do an inspection on my home, I'm thinking about listing my house. That way they can say, okay, gosh, I didn't realize I have to fix the GFIs. I have to replace this. I have to do that. I have mold in my attic. Take care of everything before you put it on the market.
Well, that to me takes us down another rabbit hole, because now if I hire a guy to do a pre-inspection on my home and find out it's got mold in the attic, now I know, don't I legally have to
Yes,
put
you
that on
do.
the seller disclosures?
You do, but most people will turn around and fix it
Okay.
before we even get to that point.
Okay, there could be some cost, but that's why you're coming over to tell me to declutter so we can offset that cost.
Yep.
And all that.
Yep.
Wow, that's
Well, for a seller to prepare the house for sale before the buyer's home inspection comes in, the home inspector comes in, it gives you more negotiating power. It's going to be
Absolutely.
cheaper for you as a seller to get the house ready to go than it will be for you to negotiate with a buyer in contract who now thinks your house is defective.
Right.
wow.
You know,
Now,
I have a loan actually closing today, and the client after inspection negotiated like 25 grand off the sales price.
Wow.
And it was a nice home. So I have no idea really what happened. It was a significant price reduction, but you go, well, guess
Wow.
what? They found something that the seller probably didn't know about and said, well, we'll take care of it, but here's what we want. You know, which even in this market is a kind of unusual, but it does happen. So this, you know, the buyers are not afraid to beat up the seller, particularly in this stressful market.
right.
Right.
Talking about those home inspections, have you ever seen the situation where a seller does a pre-inspection, hires an inspector, and then the buyer does an inspection, and now the inspections contradict themselves?
Oh, absolutely.
That happens.
Yeah, that can happen.
Do you have any examples you could share with us?
No, I don't. Not, but it can happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Well,
that makes
that goes back to, Vic, what Todd told us last week, that home inspectors are not required to be licensed in the state of Michigan.
Right.
So you could have Barstool Billy in
Yeah.
with a legal pad, who's the buyer's uncle, show up and walk through and do the home inspection, and there's no standard there if they're not, ASHI or NAHI certified.
I agree.
Well, Danielle, you brought up a good point, because Michelle, do you actually have buyers that say, nope, I'm not going to hire an inspector. I got Barstool Billy, or my father's going to come over. He used to be a builder 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
How does that work out, or how do you position that? Do you recommend that, or what's your responsibility?
Well, my responsibility is to my client,
Okay.
who is the buyer or whatever, usually the buyer at this point. And I say, well, there's things I would really love them to check out for you, but it is ultimately your choice. But again, I'm going to put in the little area where it said inspection, no, and put buyer waived inspection. So, they're aware. But the market is so crazy that there's a lot of buyers that are like, if there's mold in the attic, I'll take care of it. If the roof needs to be done, I'll take care of it. It gets me through 5 years, I'm fine. So that's really what it comes down to. If they want to, that's their choice.
Wow. And are you finding buyers settling now?
Absolutely.
Okay, so they have to take some defective.
Absolutely. If you're competing, I just got a house that had 24 offers on it. Yeah, my buyer got the house, and there was other reasons why we got it, but one of the things why we got it was informational purposes only for an inspection. We did our inspection the other day, minor little things, but they didn't care. They wanted this price point. They wanted the house.
Right. So let's, we're talking a lot about staging, the effects of all that, but we haven't really talked about you, Michelle. Give us a little bit of background. Who are you? Where do you live? Where'd you grow up? What are you doing? How long you been doing this? And just tell us a little bit about Michelle.
Oh, I hate this stuff.
Oh, come on. Spill your guts there. Let our consumers know.
Oh, gosh. Real Estate One, 22 years. Great company. The LCs are just top notch. I grew up in Pinckney and live in downtown Brighton, and I also have a lake house on Whitewood.
That's
And the
excellent.
Portage chain.
And you got a couple boys.
Yes, 2 great boys, and I'm very fortunate.
Talk about your sons a little bit. Tell the consumer about your son in the Olympic trials and all that kind of stuff. Well, what does he do?
Jake is right now, he's in Austria, and we'll see what happens with this Olympics. COVID has really affected a lot of stuff. Mitchell is also very successful, went to Northwood, has a great job, and yeah, I'm very fortunate. I'm so fortunate.
Well, you were a sports mom. Let's call you a snowboard mom. Tell us about what Jake did with the snowboarding and the levels he did.
Gosh, they started very young, both of them, at the age of 2 skiing, and then went to snowboarding, competing. And Jake won the Youth Gold Olympics. We'll see what happens with this Olympics. You know, we'll see. And when he may get his real estate license also. When he
Coming
gets
in
back.
if he's crossing over to the dark
I
side.
know he is. We talk a lot about real estate, and he'll do very, very well.
Well, and I've known you for the 20 years, and you've always supported your kids, and God, you've traveled all over the world with him.
Yeah.
And now he's traveling all over the world by himself.
Yeah.
And then Mitchell, he goes to Northwood University, and I remember I sent my son because you and I sat down. I go, where should I send my kid to college? And you said Northwood University, and that's why my kid's there.
It's a fantastic business school.
It's absolutely wonderful. So you work in Brighton here, and that's your backyard, right?
I go all over.
Are you licensed in Florida too?
No.
You're not. So you only work right here.
Yes, in Michigan. I eventually will be in Florida part-time, but I don't want to work down there. It's going to be the beach time. I just don't want to. I'm going to work hard here and play down there with Danielle.
That's the plan. Yeah. The beach is calling us.
I know.
Right up.
So now, because of your real estate skills and all that, you live in downtown Brighton in that condo, but you bought that lake home and in a hot market, high price at that time. That's just a couple years ago, right?
Not even 2 years ago.
Not even 2
Redid
years
the
ago.
whole entire thing.
You not only redid, you gutted this thing. Explain what you did to that home.
Gutted it. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything.
And if you don't mind me asking, what'd you pay and what's it worth now? I mean, talk to these people about, the investment on lake home. Sure, they're expensive, but
gosh.
look at the potential.
I mean, full disclosure, I'm going to actually think about it. I paid about $400 for it. It was a nice ranch, great lot. I love Whitewood Lake. I love all the Portage chain. Growing up there, once you're there, you really love it. I have tons of friends there. I put about 130, 150 into it, give or take. And I wasn't going to redo everything, but I ended up redoing everything.
Okay.
Everything.
So you had about $550 into it. What's it worth right now in 2022?
Well, there's nothing on the market on the chain. Maybe $850, $9.
Wow.
$850 probably realistically.
Really? Conservatively?
Yeah.
Wow.
But my love is redoing things. I love gutting houses. That's what I think I love about helping people. When they're like, help me. Okay, can we take this and paint this wall this color? Let's get a new countertop. I love redoing houses.
Okay. Do you show that experience to your sellers and buyers and show them pictures and say, hey, this is what I do here. I've done this and all that?
I just closed a house last week that literally for their new home, I picked out all their paint colors. She's like, help me. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. This is what I just did. And she's like, oh my gosh, I love it. And yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm like,
You don't come to my house because I'm going to end up having to spend too much money to make my house the way it should be. You know?
Yeah.
Wow, unbelievable. Okay, so what do you do to get more business? What keeps you alive? You talked about referrals. Why do you get so many past customer referrals?
I think it's because people honestly know that I love what I do. I truly love what I do. I love helping people. If you called me, I'm going to help you. If you, and I'm going to be honest. I mean, I don't do it for the money. I do it because I love this job and I love helping people get from point A to point B.
Okay, because a lot of consumers say, all these for sale by owners, well, the realtors, all they do is open up the lockbox.
There's so much more to it.
What happens behind the scenes? That's what we want a consumer to feel, is if that all you did, Michelle, is open the lockboxes. They don't see what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
Can you explain some of the job tasks that you do to buffer the sellers or buyers away from?
It's funny because I met someone, maybe like 3 weeks ago, and they had a house and they were going to do for sale by owner. And I said, you know what? I honestly feel if you want to do that, do that. I said, but please, 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 please make sure you check with an attorney, make sure you have all the proper documentation, make sure you have the seller's disclosure filled out, make sure you have your title work. I just went through everything with them, saying, please do this and call me if you need any help.
Right.
I don't want a for sale by owner to get themselves in trouble.
Right.
Legally, you got a lot on the line. And people these days, they will take advantage of for sale by owners. And most for sale by owners don't realize that if you put it on the MLS, you're going to get a bigger return than just for sale by owner with multiple offers, with the lack of homes.
So are you suggesting that a great real estate agent could actually net that seller more who's trying to sell by his own than by you listing it and minus the commissions and for all your efforts, they can actually yield more?
Absolutely.
Now, you talk...
Again, every situation's different.
Understood.
We look.
They typically will sell faster too.
Absolutely. You got to
When
look
it's
at
listed.
condition. You got to look at the time of year. You have to look at location. There's a lot more to look at. But sometimes for sale by owner, I always tell them, try it. I want you to do it. If you think you can do it, do it. But these are the reasons why I want you to be careful.
Well, we talk about careful. We talk about health and safety all
Right.
day here. Because my thought is if I'm selling my home for sale by owner and somebody calls me off the streets, I'm just going to let him in the home. I don't even know if this person is pre-approved or nothing, or are they
Absolutely.
just trying to come in and scope out my house? I've heard of some war stories
Oh
there.
my gosh. Unless the seller is very educated, they don't know. They don't know the difference between two different kinds of pre-approvals. It's like just because you got a pre-approval doesn't mean you're pre-approved. It's
Right.
like you gotta trust with someone.
So you talk about trust. Now, let's go, because assuming they're not selling for sale by owner, it's on the multi-list, and now you're getting multiple offers and you're seeing the pre-approvals. How do you screen them? I mean, I know you've always been one for local lenders,
Yes.
And how does a realtor look at these pre-approvals coming through? Sure, that's a better offer, but just give us your gist and your feel, your gut on what happens.
It just happened again the other day that I had a buyer. We did not get the house the first go around. The agent called and said, is your buyer still in? And I said, yes. And so we ended up getting the house for a couple different reasons. But one of the reasons why is because she said, you are using a local lender.
Okay.
And I know this lender and they can get the job done. And when they give a pre-approval, they get the job done.
So that agent, because this is Livingston County, we all know everybody
Yep.
here. So does that local pre-approval hold a lot of weight in a
Absolutely.
multiple offer situation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Again, legally though, I cannot tell a buyer who to use.
Yep.
I always say, this is who I personally use, but these are 3 names. You can use anybody you want. But locals, you really got to try to use local. If they say, well, my uncle is in St. Clair Shores, well, I can't tell them you can't use them, but sometimes agents then will come back and say, we want to work with you, but we want a local lender.
Just for
The
a second,
seller can come back and say, we want a local lender.
Okay, for a second set of eyes, or at least confirm that
Yes.
St. Clair Billy
Yes.
is legit.
Yep. And if seller comes back and says, we'll work with you, but we want you to use a local lender, that is negotiating. They can do that if they want.
So that's an
Well,
added go ahead.
the big part of any real estate transaction is trust.
Exactly.
And when you have 2 agents that might know each other, they don't have to be best friends, but if they know each other and know they have a good reputation, that, for instance, Michelle, your reputation is stellar in the marketplace, and everybody knows that you're honest and ethical and you're going to negotiate fairly, right? To
Yes.
create a win-win situation. That's not always the case with real estate agents, and I think buyers and sellers need to understand that.
Yes.
You bring somebody in out of the area, um, you don't know who you're dealing with, and you don't know who truly is going to be honest and ethical and negotiate from the right perspective.
Right.
And it does help when you have a good realtor involved. I mean, the house my daughter and her husband just bought, there were multiple offers on it,
Mm-hmm.
and Michelle worked very hard, but she knew the listing agent.
Mm-hmm.
They've had professional relationships before, and obviously they knew whose name was on the pre-approval letter, so that helped the kids' offer stand out in a competitive market,
Absolutely.
even in the middle of December.
Yep. Absolutely. Being from Livingston County and doing business, all 99% of the realtors all know one another. We all know how you work. Everyone respects everybody. So when you get some new agents that come in and just starting out, sometimes you got to train them. Sometimes you got to be like, okay, well, this is how it's usually done. Let's work together here. But having good relationships with lenders and other agents is very, very important in a small community.
So you're part of the whole package. You're not only a buyer and a listing agent, you have your circle
Oh, absolutely.
of lenders, inspectors, and professional people that your buyers and sellers can utilize.
Yep. And I always tell people, I'm like, one of my favorite sayings is, I don't care if it's buyers, sellers, agents, lenders, inspectors, whatever it is, treat people how you want to be treated. Would you want somebody to talk to you like that? If you don't, then don't talk to somebody like that. Treat how you want to be treated.
Very interesting. So, Danielle, any closing questions or concerns here as we wrap up the show?
No, I thank you, Michelle, for coming
Oh,
on
thanks.
today.
I told you I don't like
it
this stuff.
I know you don't. I know you don't. When we first did it, I was like, oh my gosh. But now we kind of enjoy it,
Yeah.
actually. But, one of the things that I think is important, and quick funny story on how my daughter met Michelle. My daughter was a college student who commuted from home and started going to a local gym. And that's how she met Michelle
Oh,
in
Yeah.
cycling classes, I think. And, my daughter is very strong willed and would not take even her mother's recommendation. And she goes, oh no, I already have a realtor. I'm like, Allison, who's your realtor? It's Michelle Vedder. I went, oh, thank God,
yeah.
because I knew she would be taken care of. But I was like, no, I would have had to get in there, but it's just when you say it's who you know in your referrals, it's all of those things in
Yep.
life, those connections that, you became friends with my daughter, at the fitness center,
Yeah. And I
and
told her the other day, I said, I'll come and help you unpack. I mean, honestly, that's the stuff I like to do.
Do you cut grass too, Michelle?
No, I draw the line. I don't do bathrooms.
Pull weeds?
I have done that before. I actually have.
yeah.
Yeah. No,
But that makes a big difference. And, Allison and Trevor's story, I think, is kind of an exciting illustration. They were first time home buyers 3 years ago. They bought a house that needed a lot of love. In fact, when I saw their first house, I was like, oh no, you are not buying this. You got a new baby, you guys are working. But they saw some potential in it and bought it and spent the last 3 years fixing it up. And,
Yep.
finally were able to, they decided to get a house with acreage. So they decided for a little bit of a change in lifestyle and took advantage of the market now before the rates went up. And boy, did they
Right.
get lucky.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But for me as the mom,
Yeah.
especially being in the industry, I knew that if they were going to look at a house with Michelle was going to be honest with them,
Yeah.
because they don't want to hear it from their parents, right? They don't want us to
And
go
what
through
you
the
and I
house.
talked about outside of them knowing, it was like, oh, that was not a good house. Oh, no. Oh,
Yeah.
Well,
Oh God. Yeah.
Edit that.
No, I told it. No. I told Allison. I was like, no, we saw a couple of houses in the last few months, and I went, oh dear God, they run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a bigger project than what they bought 3 years ago, and they do not have the time. So they ended up, I was coaching. All I could do was coach. Allison and
Yeah.
Trevor had to make the move, but I was like, nope, they were in good hands
The
with
house
Michelle.
they
So
bought is absolutely perfect for them.
yes.
Everything about it is perfect. And And the thing with me is my clients are my friends afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's what's important to me. They are my friends. We have a relationship.
Well, it's funny because God, we've done hundreds of transactions over the years, and they become friends and past customers. And the reason they like Michelle, they go, no, we love Michelle because she tells me what home not to buy. Don't go buy this one. Just don't buy that one.
Well,
don't buy that one.
Not exactly those words.
But you're not there to sell them anything. You're there to, I don't want to say the word steer, but make sure they avoid situations like this or potential value issues or items that could of concern.
It's funny because I just had this also recently in December, and I had a buyer from out of state, and I FaceTimed every house I went to because they were out of state, and they ended up buying one. And there was a couple things that I said, I want everything to me is always resale, always resale. Don't tell me you're going to live here forever because your kids are still going to have to resale. And there was a couple things I pointed out when they asked my opinion. I said, I feel like I have to tell you these two things about this house. And they listened and they understood and they said, okay, but we still want to buy. I said, okay. I know I did my job by pointing these two things out for resale down the way. So,
well, the value there is Michelle's vision, right?
Right.
She sees more and she can give a buyer or a seller this impartial opinion to say, here's what this is. Do you understand it? And it's a plus or a minus. I mean, everybody's going to view a house differently and how they want to use it, and what their needs are. But at least they can get that impartial opinion. And, even with my kids, they got used to seeing so many, let's call them scratch and dent houses.
right.
Because that's what they bought 3 years ago, that they didn't understand what a really nice house looked at until they found the house they bought.
Yep.
You know?
And with now working with younger kids that I've known forever since they were little, they're buying their first homes and they want my opinion. And I always tell them, I work for you, but if you want my opinion, I will give it to you. Would I let my boys buy this house? And they're like, yes, we want to know if you would let Mitchell or Jake buy this house. And I say, when they ask me, no, I wouldn't, or yes, I would.
That's a good angle.
Yeah. Again, I work for them. So if you want my honesty, I'll give it to you, good or bad.
Well, at least you take it personally.
I do.
Every client.
I mean, because they're my people, you know.
Yeah, my peeps.
They're my peeps. I got to take care of them.
So how does one get a hold of you, Michelle? What is your cell phone number?
734-368-1496.
And your website?
I sell livingston.com.
Okay. I think also michellevedder.com,
Yep,
correct? Okay. Any closing words for our consumer, Michelle?
I'm ready to go. I got time. Let's go.
Okay. Well, that's
It's not too early. It's not too early if you're thinking of selling your house.
It is
Now
not.
is the time to call your realtor, and whether you plan on listing in February, March, April, start now.
I agree.
Do your homework up front.
And I will come in, help them declutter, help them have vision of what their home can look like.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
That's our show for today, everybody. And I think that was a great episode. We'll see you next time here on A Smarter Way Home.